Yo, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy Zeddy here, and I am back at it again to deliver part 3 for What If Deku was Spider-Man. Now, I know a lot of you guys are probably like, dude, you left us on a big cliffhanger yesterday. What happens to MJ? What happened to Deku? Well, all of those questions are going to be answered on this part, and with that being said, there will be no recap on this part, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. We start our story off with Deku and MJ getting rushed to the hospital. Immediately after everything had happened, a bunch of pro heroes would have swarmed the area. This meaning Endeavor, All Might, Midnight, people like that would immediately just get to the scene. As this is when the Green Goblin would hop onto his little device and he would basically just leave. He would flee the area as quickly as he possibly can, just freaking out mentally like, what did he just do? And why does he innately know how to use this thing? He would have a weird voice in his head, and out of nowhere, he would suddenly pass out. He would wake up back in his house a couple of hours later, and he would start freaking out. But this one we will now be cutting back to our perspectives to Deku. This is when Deku and MJ would arrive back in the hospital about 10 minutes later. They would both be in really bad shape, but since MJ doesn't have a healing factor, she's actually way worse off than Deku is. She doesn't have no way to regenerate these things as fast as Deku does, and it's going to take her a lot longer for her to heal back to how she was. If at all, she may lose her ability to walk, and that's something that she may have to live with. However, this one we will now basically chark over to them both getting rushed over to the hospital. Deku's eyes would open just barely as he would then pass out unconscious. And after about 3 hours would pass, Deku would finally wake up, breathing heavily as he would ask, "Where's MJ?" Immediately the doctor would look at him and say, "Good, you're awake." "Nurse," as he would immediately just begin to call everybody into the room. They would then begin to basically perform a little bit of things on Deku. They would inject him with IV fluids and all this stuff, and this is when Deku would start getting healed up by the doctor. Recovery girl would walk inside, and she would then give Deku a kiss, which would start healing up Deku's healing process even faster. But the damage he took, that was not a completely different level. His body is completely mangled. Those explosives, they're nuke level. In a tiny little bomb, that thing could kill a person easily. And this is when Deku would basically say, "Where's MJ?" as they would begin to tell him again, she's in critical condition. Deku, after hearing this, after a little bit of getting healed up, he would try to get up, but he can't. And Deku would just sit there with thoughts racing through his head. He would just be wondering how she is. Did she survive? It's his fault. It's his fault. He knew he should have never went out that day. They should have just went to his house. If only none of this would have ever happened. They would have been home right now doing absolutely nothing like always. It's his. But this is when they would then finally inject him with a little fluid, which would cause Deku to pass out again. Due to the fact that if Deku's freaking out like this, his body may not recover in the way that it usually should. He would wake up about 6 hours later, and Deku would finally be able to rip off all of the IV fluids and everything that he had on himself. As he would have that little hospital gown on him, he would then start to step outside, carrying the little machine, which he would use to basically lean on. Deku would start to limp over to MJ's room, and this is when Deku would see how bad it is. He would see her in a way that he's never seen her before. Immediately, he would hold his hand. He would cover his mouth with his hand as tears would begin to run down his face. As he would fall to his knees and say, "Why, MJ? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please forgive me." He would just fall onto his knees and bang on the floor as a nurse would come in out of nowhere and she'd say, "Hey, come on, we gotta get you back to your room. You're in no condition to be acting like this." Deku would be silent. No words, no thoughts, just it's his fault. This is when Deku would arrive back to the room, and for the next hours he would just have one thought in his head. He's not immortal. He can feel pain just like everybody else. He can still die just like anybody else can. Just because nobody's ever been able to touch him ever since he finally awakened his quote-unquote quirk, he believes. He thought that he was unbeatable, untouchable. It seemed as if he was too powerful to ever be touched by even All Might himself, but today was a reality check. Deku isn't immortal. Deku isn't a god. Deku's just a normal kid. A normal kid with too much power to realize it. And Deku would finally realize that with great power comes even bigger responsibilities. He can't just be putting people in his life through pain like this. And he would start having a very twisted view of what that means. This is when Deku would feel one thought going across his head. He would think, I'll never let anybody get hurt like this ever again. Or die. MJ could die because of me. Because of my weakness. That'll never happen again. Deku would have one thought going through his head as well. He's not the strongest as he thought. He's nothing but mortal. Deku never viewed himself like that for a while, and this was a big reality check for him. He would lay back down and sleep it off until the very next days would go by. 4 days would then go by after this, and Deku would finally return to school. After being healed fully, mentally and physically. The mental part would have definitely taken the longest due to the fact that that was the hardest part to get over. His body would have ended up healing about 4 hours after he went to MJ's room, but his mind was completely shattered. MJ was the one thing in his life that kept him grounded. And without her, he just doesn't know how to feel. It's hard. Deku would go over to the hospital and he would drop off some flowers to MJ and talk to her. Tell her that she's going to be alright and that Deku will always be here to visit her. But this one Inko would come into the room and tell Deku that he's going to be late if he doesn't go now. As Deku would kiss her on the forehead, he would then walk off, get in the bus, and he would then finally arrive to UA. He would walk inside, and this is when everybody would look at him with a weird, kind of empathetic look. They would all look at him and kind of feel bad for him. Deku would sit back in the back of the classroom, and he would just kind of just stay quiet. As this is when Aizawa would walk into the room, and he would look towards Deku as he would nod to him, tell him that he heard about what happened. He's sorry about what happened to MJ, but class must continue. As he would tell them all that they're going to need to get their stuffs because they are going to go to the USJ event. Everybody would begin to get a little happy, and some people would go over to Deku, as Uraraka would. She would tell Deku to not worry about it. You know, MJ will be fine. They have the best doctors in the world working on her. And there's no way that she's going to get hurt. You know, she will be fine. Trust her. Trust the doctors. MJ will be fine. Positive thoughts is all they need, and prayers. Deku would look at her, give her a little bit of a weird smile, and then say, yeah. And at this point, I'm going to cover what happened with Osborn. As I had said, Osborn would arrive home and a weird voice would snap into his mind. He would wake up a couple of hours later and say, What happened? As he would start getting brief flashbacks of all of the events that had occurred. Osborn would slam a table over to the other side of the room with incredible strength, as he would then say, what happened to me? As a weird, ominous voice would come in from the background, it would say, no, what happened to us? The voice would start laughing maniacally, and Osborn would say, who are you? Who's there? He would start looking around every single corner, every single corridor, everything that he can see. He would start searching, but nothing. He would say, he must be the smartest man in the world, and for what? You don't even know where I'm at. I'm in your head. As Osborn would say, no. He would then say, it was you. You caused me to do all of that. I would have never. As the voice would then snap back at him and say, oh, but you would, Osborn. You would. This is what you are. These are the emotions that you don't let out to the public eye, but this is how we truly are on the inside. We're a monster, a goblin. As, Osborn would scream, no, and the voice would start driving him insane. It would completely just destroy his mental state, and it would finally convince Osborn that he truly is the bad guy that everybody says he is. This is when we're now finally going to switch over to the scene with the USJ and Deku inside of the car. But at that point, the goblin would start to laugh maniacally, and he would finally start upgrading his gear. This is when for the next couple of days, or weeks actually, the goblin will be working on that. And now, for Deku will be basically on the bus, as this is when they would finally arrive to the USJ. But before they would walk inside, Deku would feel a sort of weird presence. Deku would go over to Aizawa and tell him that there's something in there, but Aizawa would look at Deku as he would say that the perimeter was cleared about an hour ago. There's no way anybody got inside. 13 was in there. Just don't worry about it. Your quirk may be malfunctioning or something, but, it doesn't seem like there will be anything in there. Deku would walk inside, kind of with a weird expression on his face, as he would be thinking that there's no way he just didn't listen to him. There's no way he would just throw his ideas in the back of his mind. And Aizawa, of course, would have been hoping for the best, but he would definitely be thinking about what Deku said. It's at this point that they would basically walk inside, and immediately, as soon as 13 begins to give her speech, Kurogiri would open a portal. As immediately Deku would see this portal, he would say, "No, I knew it," as immediately villains would start to drop in on every location that would have happened in canon. And Deku would immediately shoot a web at Kurogiri, as he would fling himself over to it and kick Kurogiri down before he even gets a chance to teleport anybody around. Deku at this point would shoot webs, a bunch of them, at all of the villains. He would shoot electric volt webs with 2 million volts each, just completely frying each and every single one of the villains that he could get a hold of. And he would start swinging from area to area, completely just decimating each and every person, using his max top speed to just obliterate villain after villain, mangling these villains. He would show no signs of mercy, breaking legs, arms, and even some paralyzing them. Deku went through that entire section and told them all that he was going to show no mercy, just in the way that they showed him none. Cobra Kai reference. Anyways, this is when Deku would basically proceed to continue going in there, and Aizawa would scream at Deku to stop this. This is not the image of a hero that a hero should portray. These villains are bad, yes, but he can't be paralyzing these guys. Aizawa would say that after realizing what Deku had done to one of the men, and he would basically scream that out to Deku, as Deku would say that he's doing what has to be done, what they won't do. As Deku would continue to pummel down on more and more villains until he finally arrives to the area where Aizawa was getting his head beaten by the Nomu. Deku would be beating that section, and as soon as he's done, Shigaraki would be screaming, "No, no, no, it's not fair. This kid, he can't win." He would say, "Nomu, kill that brat." As immediately the Nomu would come in and punch Deku right in the face, as Deku would not move an inch. Deku would look towards the Nomu and give him a death stare, as immediately Deku would say that there will be no mercy. As immediately he would jump on top of the Nomu, hug it with all of his strength, and he would release all of the voltage, 100 million volts. The Nomu would turn into sheer dust, and Shigaraki would have been just completely taken out by that attack. This is when Kurogiri would go over to Shigaraki, as Shigaraki was barely hit with a tiny little bit, meaning that he got hit with like let's say he got hit with 3 million volts, right? Because he was pretty far away. But Deku did that, and Shigaraki would end up getting away with Kurogiri. Deku, after taking the Nomu down, would then look towards Shigaraki as he was getting away and say, "Oh no, you don't!" As Shigaraki would get terrified, he would say, "Kurogiri, now!" As this is when Aizawa would arrive, and he would wrap Deku up with a scarf as he would say, "That's enough, Parker. You need to stand down." Deku would look towards Aizawa as he would say, "Get off of me!" And he would rip off the bandages off of himself, as he would look towards Aizawa and tell him that he let them get away. Aizawa would look at Deku and he would say, "I stopped you from doing something that you were going to regret. You haven't killed anybody yet. But if you do, I will be forced to put you down." Deku would look at Aizawa and say, "You can try it, but now you're the villain." As he would look towards Aizawa and he would rush at him, as immediately he would take down Aizawa and trap him with a bunch of his own webbings. 13 would try to stop Deku, but Deku would have just closed her, completely surrounded her with metal webbing, which she just could not break. And he would have ended up charging it up with electric bolts. So 13 ended up getting passed out. This is when immediately after he took care of 13, All Might would bust in through the room. And he would see everything completely devastated. All Might would see what the area was looking like and immediately just look towards Deku's direction as he would say, "Did you do this?" Deku would look towards All Might as he would say, "And what if I did? What are you gonna do, All Might? You gonna hit one of the students? Huh?" As All Might would look towards Deku, he would look down at the ground, look at all the carnage which is before him, and he would then say that he needs to stop. All Might would walk in, see everything, and Deku would look towards All Might as All Might would put his hand on his shoulder. He would say, "I understand what you're going through, young Parker, but this is not the way to go about it. Come with me." Deku would look at All Might and say, "No, this is the way to go about it. You're all deluded. You all don't understand. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand the hell that I've been going through. MJ's in the hospital because of me, because I was too weak to stop the villains. And you mean to tell me that your flawed justice system is gonna bring them in? Well, I'm not gonna stop until that goblin character is taken down. And he pays. I'm gonna send him straight out to hell." just like the rest of these guys. He would aim his shooter straight at one of the villains and shoot him with a bunch of bolts. As the villain would drop down to the ground, he would start just kind of wincing in pain. As All Might would look at Deku and say, "That's enough." Deku would say that no, it's not. As he would immediately turn himself invisible, leave the area. All Might would just stand there as he would think that that kid is going down the wrong path. All Might would not know what to do. He's never had to deal with a situation like this. Deku would walk away from the situation, just web sling away from there. And this is when Deku would finally start taking in everything that just happened. He just broke the law. A million thoughts would start going through Deku's head, and he would start repenting all the actions that he just took. But he would then think that, well, what's done is done. There's nothing he can do about it now. He has to go through with it. Take down the goblin for MJ. That's what she would have wanted. And oh my god, Deku, you are so wrong for that. That is definitely not what MJ would have wanted. So, yeah, now let's go back into the story. I had to just add that little part. Anyways, Deku would realize that he's probably going to be searched by a bunch of pro heroes now. I mean, he just broke the law. There's no way that Deku will be able to go back to his house now. Deku would go over to his house, grab all of his belongings in a backpack, grab a carton of water bottles, and end up going to the abandoned warehouse where he and MJ would have trained when they were kids. A long time ago. That thing would have been closed off to the normal people, but there would have been one easy access point to it. Something that Deku could have easily gotten to. The roof. And there was even a part that MJ and he custom made. A little bit of a secret area, I guess you could say. They would have had some laptops. They installed some internet there due to Deku's just enhanced intelligence. I mean, I forgot to mention this, but Deku is incredibly intelligent. He's very ignorant, but intelligent at that. And Deku would then start using the tech that they had there to find out who the goblin is and how we can find him, how to track him down. But he would find nothing. Nothing at all. 2 days would go by and Deku would get angrier and angrier as he would then begin to have thoughts and just decide to relax. He would lay down on the couch that he and her had there, the one that they used for a lot of purposes. Deku would lay down and grab a picture of MJ from his wallet as Deku would say, "How I miss you." He would look towards that picture as he would say, "Well, there's nothing I can do about it now. Guess I gotta live with what happened." Deku would proceed to basically just start having thoughts race in his head. He would then think that as soon as he takes down the goblin, he'll face the consequences for what he did, but he can't go turning himself in now. Somebody needs to stop him, and All Might won't be able to. The power that he displayed, it was far more powerful than anything that he had ever seen All Might do. And from what he can tell, he's been declining. This is when Deku would continue the search, but finds nothing. No clues, no names, nothing. Deku would get angry and flip the table as he would then start wrecking the entire place. His anger would begin to get the best of him, and Deku would finally just have enough. Deku would decide that if he can't find him through this means, he's just gonna have to find him on the streets. This is when Deku would go on a sort of vigilante-esque type stuff, and he would create a different sort of looking suit for himself. Very different than the one that you guys saw on my community tab. I know yesterday's part I didn't end up actually including the Deku hero costume, but that is because your boy kind of forgot. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about that part, and I totally forgot to edit that in there when I was editing the video. But you know, you guys can go see the costume if you guys look at my community tab. It will be the newest post there. So yeah, if you guys want to know what goes on with that, basically just look at my community tab, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys already have. So yeah, anyways, at this time the students were all doing their USJ events, and Deku was still searching for the villains. Deku was still searching for Goblin. At this point, Deku's been very brutal with all the villains that he's been taking down, and he searches a bunch of people. Every night he would basically go by a bunch of muggers. He would sometimes stop some big organizations, but most of the time it was nothing but petty thieves. Every now and then he would have to fight a battle, which seems like a little bit of a hassle, but well, for Deku it was nothing. Deku would finally start realizing that he's not gonna find anything like this, but he can't give up. It's for MJ. At this point, Deku still hasn't went to go visit her just due to the fact that he's too busy looking for the goblin. And yeah, at this point, they're all having the UA Sports Festival event. Inko's worried sick for Deku, and Deku's been going many nights, losing countless hours of sleep and not eating right. Deku's struggling. Although his body is superhuman, he's not immortal. as he already knew before, but Deku was completely disregarding that notion right now. And Deku would continue to do things as he is now. Deku would continue to find nothing and roam the street for more weeks on end. And this is when the UA Sports Festival would have ended. They would have already done their internships events. Everything that you guys would expect would go by as it did in canon. And this is when we will finally have the forest training arc. To which at this point, the students will all be in the forest. And it will now be the day, the fateful night where everything happened. At this point, Deku would start breaking down in his hideout. As Deku would tear up looking at the picture of MJ and just say that he can't do it. He can't find him. Where are you, Goblin? Where are you? He would scream out to the heavens as he doesn't know. He can't find him. There's not a clue. There's nothing. He would destroy the laptop and then decide that, well, he failed her. He would decide that he's going to go visit her if nothing else. And he would then throw on a hoodie and some jeans to cover his face up. Deku would begin to walk over to the hospital very slowly and making sure that he doesn't pass by any pro heroes. This is when Deku would finally arrive to the location of the hospital, and Deku would go invisible as he would start sneaking in through everything until he finally arrives at MJ's room. This is when Deku would walk inside with no doctors around, and he would notice that MJ's there. He would see her awake. Her eyes are open. Deku would say, "Hey MJ." As MJ would look around the room and see nothing, she would say, "Are you there, Deku?" Deku would say, "I am, but I can't be here right now." And she would say, "Why not?" Deku would say that, there's reasons for that. As he would turn off the invisibility cloak to talk to MJ for a bit, she would look at him and say, "How have things been?" Deku would look at her and say, "Good. I mean, everything's been good at UA." And she would say, "Yeah, it sure looks like it. Come on, don't lie to me. I can tell when you're lying. And are you really this bad because you're worried for me?" She would crack a joke and start laughing at Deku's expenses. Deku would smile a little bit and say, "Yeah," a little something like that. She would ask what's been going on since she's been out, and Deku would look at her as he would say, "A lot." He would look down at the ground and she would understand what Deku means. She would tell him that it doesn't look like he doesn't seem like he's himself. And to be honest, he doesn't feel like himself either. Deku would look at her and say, "To be honest with you, MJ, a lot of things have been going on. A lot." He would then begin to tell her everything about what happened at the USJ, how he snapped, how he's been searching for the goblin and trying to bring him down. He's going to kill him if it's the last thing he does. MJ would look at Deku and put her hands in his face as he would say, "That's not who you are. You're different than that. You're kind. You're heroic. You're better. Maybe you're not the #1 hero yet, but someday you will be, and this isn't the example that you should be showing. If you're not going to be better for yourself, be better for me. This isn't what I would have wanted, dummy. I never would have wanted you to go countless nights or to not be with your mother. Come on, Inko's worried sick. It's not just about me. It's about all of us." She would look towards Deku and smile. Deku would as well, and he would pull in for a hug. As this is when immediately they would hear on the TV that's in MJ's room, a news little station is going off, as it's currently saying that All Might and All For One are having an all-out battle. She would look towards Deku's direction as she would say, "You gotta go help him. There's no way he'll be able to handle the battle. Look at it." At this point, All Might would be at the losing end. This is right after All For One told them about Shigaraki being Nana Shimura's grandson. Deku would look at her. She would say, "I don't know. I'm not exactly on good terms with the heroes right now." As she would say, "Come on. It's not about that right now. It's about doing what's right now. Go get him, Spidey." As Deku would smile at her direction, he would then say, "All right, I'll be back, but don't miss me too much." As immediately Deku would turn on the invisibility cloak and he would swing from building to building at his max speed, running from top to top of the buildings as fast as he can, as he would arrive in about 1 minute to the fight with All For One and All Might. Deku would land right beside All Might as All For One would say, "If it isn't the Spider Boy. I saw the articles on the news." Deku would then look towards All Might as he would completely ignore All For One and say, "So, what's the deal with this guy? What are his abilities?" All Might would say, "Kid, what are you doing here? This isn't the place to be." As All For One would shoot a blast at All Might, Deku would create meta webbing in front of them, which would stop the beam from coming at them. And Deku would then look at All Might as he would say, "Look, All Might, I know we're not on the best terms, but right now, you have to trust me." All Might would look at Deku as he would say, "Kid, I don't know." And Deku would say, "Please, All Might, trust me." All Might would look at Deku's direction and say, All right, kid. I trust you. Deku would look at All Might and say, all right then, this is what we're going to do. We are going to basically need 300 likes if you guys want me to continue the next part. A lot of you guys probably were expecting more content or for me to cover the All Might and Deku fight against All For One. But no, you guys are going to be having to wait for part 4 of What If Deku was Spider-Man. I hope that you guys got hyped off this part due to the fact that, it was pretty fun to record. I had a pretty fun time. And in case you guys haven't checked out the Spider-Man costume, again, it is on my community tab. So yeah, with that being said though, you guys definitely need to smash a pretty big like goal if you guys want the next part. Or honestly, I might just do it just because I'm bored. Like honestly, I love the series. I'm pretty actually no, I'm just gonna record it right now after this. But still, that being said, all the usual stuff. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.